So again, thanks everyone for joining today. My name is Thao. I'm with ProcureNow. We are a certified small business based in California that offers comprehensive and compliant tools for remote government procurement that's modern and easy to use. I feel like that the fact that we are offer intuitive tools is what really makes us different in the marketplace. The title of our webinar today is called Collaborating on Scopes of Work, RFPs, and Bid Language While Working from Home. So really unlike the other webinars that we've had up until now that have really been focused on the electronic bidding side of things, there will be some aspects of that today. But as the title suggests, we're going to be really focusing on developing your scopes of work, developing your RFPs and your bid language, and sort of all. I'm going to try to hit a lot of things around that. Things that both things that are related to ProcureNow and how you can utilize the tool to help you with that. Because I know a lot of folks do come in because they want to see like how our tool works, and so I promise you we're gonna spend some time showing you how our tool works and helping you write your RFPs and bids. I also, in doing this many times with our customers over the years, have developed some best practices and also some great stories around how just proper planning, proper structure, proper process can really make a difference. And so I'm hoping to share some of that experience with you today. A little bit about me. I'm the sales and marketing lead for ProcureNow, and I've been working as a consultant for local government agencies for nearly 20 years. What I love about my job today, and it still continues today, is that I get to work with folks such as folks in public procurement, public administration, public works, and especially right now, I'm just so proud to be able to support the work that you're doing to help your projects keep going, to help these procurements that you have that are very important to the innovation of your agency. But this is also really important work for small businesses such as myself and others in a time where we're all wondering if we're going to have work to do, if we're going to have good jobs and honest work. And so the fact that you're in the trenches and you're working overtime every day, it just makes me really proud of the work that I do to help support the folks such as yourself. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing, for the overtime that you're putting in right now. I'm just so honored to be able to work with folks such as yourself. I also have with me Geri Forslund today. She is the Purchasing and Contract Administrator with Leon County, Florida. Geri, can you just say hi to everybody real quick?
Hi, everyone.
Okay. Hopefully everybody heard her. She's literally my iPhone sitting next to the microphone, and I hope that works well. So I think we're going to be good to go. I had to do this once before, so I think we're fine. But Geri is going to be she's going to be co-hosting with me and sharing some of the experiences that she's had on not only just using ProcureNow, but all the planning that went into the organization of their solicitations, the process that they go through when they're routing them through through approvals and through just developing template language and clauses and the options that go along with each and every solicitation. And so she's got some really great experience that I was excited that she could join us today. So thanks, Geri. All right. Okay, so this is something that I kind of giggle a little bit about, but to be honest with you, we never really love, or we as buyers and we in public procurement may love this, but our customers, particularly don't find this process very enjoyable, and so our goal as a company was to, how can we find ways to change that so that we can continue to enjoy what we do, and especially when it comes to such important projects that we're working on, that you're working on. And so This really makes us look at a lot of things when it comes to how to create a better experience that that lends itself to like better collaboration, better consensus building, etc. So what are we hoping to uncover today? And I'll just kind of go through these bullet points a little bit with you. First of all, we are, in recognizing that developing solicitations is not an easy task. And so I kind of want to dissect that a little bit and get to the bottom of why that is. In dealing with the fact that we're working from home today, that all of us are working from home today mostly. Some of us might be trickling back into our offices, but we don't know necessarily when this is going to end. And so we need to come up with good creative ways so that we can actually like even improve the quality of the work that we're doing, and take advantage of the fact that because we are working from home, what that's doing is that's forcing us to go through this I would say rapid digital transformation of how can I leverage tools that are available to us to help me do my job better. And it's kind of under the guise of the fact that we're kind of like shelter in place and working from home. But there's an opportunity there. And so, when we're working and developing solicitations, that's, and doing that in person, that's one thing. When we're forced to pass back and forth a series of word processor documents and Excel spreadsheets and PDFs and attachments and zip files and send them through email, all of a sudden that becomes just like, it's something we just don't want to, not possible. And so, we've spent the last couple of months trying to fix this problem of like, okay, like I need to do electronic procurement, I need to do electronic bidding, right? But now we're kind of like moving into this stage of, okay, well, what about my next projects? Am I just going to put them on hold? Kind of as I mentioned before, like it's kind of, we kind of don't want to put those things on hold if possible, because there's important work to do. And there's a lot of local businesses out there that could really use this opportunity to, to do this important work that the community needs. And so how can we empower you to properly collaborate and set up your solicitations so that the quality remains high, but we're not actually sitting in our office to do it. And then in addition to that, number three, the third step, how can we balance compliance with detail, with quality, and with ease? I think that's sort of the, if we can accomplish all those things when it comes to, a very large project or, or even a small quote, that, now we're really getting somewhere, and how can we do that repeatedly every single time, so that this process doesn't become daunting? The next thing, how collaborating and writing your solicitation in real time allows you to gain real-time consensus. So I don't have to wait a week or two to get the feedback, on a red line or something like that. I don't have to do that because we have ways that you can actually work on your own sections of your solicitation in real time. And again, when we talk about these things, like sometimes I talk in the context of ProcureNow, but if you think about it, it's something that you don't necessarily have to have ProcureNow to do some of the stuff today with the advent of Google Docs and Office 365, et cetera. Some of the stuff you can actually accomplish today. And then, why achieving digital transformation improves the quality of our solicitation and also the quality of responses. And so again, that kind of goes back to what we're saying before, that we went at digital transformation because we were trying to solve originally the sort of paper to paperless process with vendors, but we have this opportunity, and this opportunity is I could actually improve the quality of the solicitation itself, and by doing so, now that we're kind of like moving into this electronic world, how do I meld those two together, the solicitation and the electronic, the world that we live in, and improve the overall quality of the response of the vendor. So there's again, there's a real opportunity here. So I'll just bring this up that when when you don't have a real good understanding of who's responsible for what, this can create adversaries and chaos. I hear the word adversary a lot when it comes to developing good scopes of work or just developing solicitations. You know, I had a customer just the other day that called me and was like, I really need to understand like how long this request was sitting in this department and how long it's been sitting with us and how many times we passed it back and forth because they're telling us that it was our fault for that this thing hasn't been moving forward. And then we're saying that like, you know, we never really got good specifications from you in the first place. And this is a story that we hear over and over and over again. Fortunately, in our system, we can actually give you that information and you can see the back and forth that happens when you're passing these requests around. But the reality is that like we just have to get better about that, and no system is going to solve that. No technology is going to solve that. You know, when we don't understand the design process, you know, then that essentially it creates chaos. You know, when we don't have good processes and good management in place, it creates chaos. And so the result of that is a solicitation that feels like a set of instructions to like build a cabinet from IKEA. That's what I feel like when I am responding to solicitations sometimes to RFPs, where I'm trying to figure out like, where does this, okay, they say that there's these screws over here, but and then I need to do this, and but also over here, there's this other form that didn't show up in the place where it says that listed all the things that I was supposed to respond to, but it's still sitting over here in the back of this as an exhibit. Like, what do I do with that? Am I supposed to do something with that? Or am I just supposed to leave it alone because it didn't say anything about it over here? And so a lot of times, what I end up doing is I end up like printing out that solicitation, that 100-page solicitation, and I start getting out my highlighter, green for submission instruction, red for terms and conditions, blue for scope of work. And I have to color code like every clause just in order to decipher what the instructions actually are, excuse me, that I'm supposed to follow. And so there is absolutely a better way that we can do that. And that's just by taking the time to organize the format of the solicitation. And we'll talk a little bit about that here in a moment. And so I bring this up. This is a quote from one of our customers, and this isn't about having the right tools for the job. It's about not having the right tools for the job. And that's not to say that office tools are bad. But when you're unzipping a bunch of files, passing them around for feedback, that can get like really crazy, really fast. And you can solve that with real-time collaboration tools like ProcureNow, Office 365, Google Docs, etc. So again, it's not something that's specific about ProcureNow. It's about moving into a cloud-based collaboration environment. But that's not the only thing that you do, but that is one thing that you can do that can really help you get to a consensus and a higher quality overall document, a set of requirements, set of scopes, rather than just taking something and just like and zipping it up and dropping it into an email, so to speak. There's a lot of real-time collaboration tools that are out there today that you can take advantage of. And so this is another quote, and although I'm happy to take credit for what's being said here, that ProcureNow has empowered our staff to focus on strategic procurement rather than the administrative build out of each RFP, RFQ. In fact, drafting is cut in half. ProcureNow doesn't actually get to take credit for all of that, right? Like, we certainly have seen this because implementing a tool like ProcureNow gives you an excuse to organize your solicitations. But you can do that without ProcureNow, not just organizing the language, but organizing the people, the process, the expectations up front. You can use ProcureNow as a way to empower you so that to do that institutionally within sort of our cloud-based workflow automation tool. But again, you don't really need ProcureNow to be doing that today. And so I'm actually going to stop here, and Geri, I'm gonna do something here I didn't tell you about, but I'm going to bring up the original solicitation template that you sent me, and just kind of walk through that real quick. And it's really just about a visual of like what a vendor sees when they get a 46-page document. And so as a person who might want to respond to something that looks like this, I start searching for clues, right? Of like, okay, what is this project about? And so I'm start reading, okay, so here's some instructions, here's some special accommodations, here's information about rejecting bids. Here's, okay, this is important. This is like a table, a schedule of events. Here's some information about, if they do addenda. Here we go. Okay, here's information about my qualifications. Here's some information about how I would prepare something. I'm looking, I'm trying to find something. Okay, here's some MWSB information. I continue to look, and I'm just trying to find out what the project is about, right? So, and I'm looking, here's some information about payment and performance bond, construction site signage, all important, really, really important information. Finally I get down, to page 27, and I start to get like a checklist of the things that I need to respond to. And then I get to page 28, and it talks a little bit about like, okay, so, making sure that like I understand like what I'm responding to. I think, the specification actually occurs like right here in their template. And so, not to, Geri and the team at Leon County are awesome. I'm going to show you what they've done that has completely transformed this. But you see here how, if we're not careful, that the meat and the potatoes of why I as a vendor would want to respond is completely buried in tables and affidavits and certificates and forms and instructions. And there's only like one section really that talks about it, and it's like kind of stuck in the middle of the solicitation. And so, okay, I'll give them, there's a sentence in the front that says what the purpose is. And that's good. Like, that's actually something that we talk about. But also there's a visualness to it of like, what's cluing me in visually about, where the topics are changing, and, where I can focus on things that are just related to like the instructions, etc. So it was kind of important that when I saw that, I was like, okay, like we're going to be able to do something, and that was kind of where we're leading to next. And so, I'm going to just dive in on this. So the first thing we want to do is we want to break up that format. So there's some, before we reorder sort of things that we want to reorder, we first sort of want to identify those things, those sections where you need collaboration, right? So in order to get effective collaboration and get effective consensus, especially when you're in these sort of remote situations, you really want to focus people on like, just pay attention to these things. And so we break up the format so that you can work on just the stuff that needs collaboration. So, and I've broken it out into these sort of three areas. You've got your scope of work, which is your technical requirements, your project reporting requirements, staff experience requirements, et cetera, bid tables, anything that's very specific to, like, I want these services, I want these goods, this is my scope, these are my requirements. Second is something that we also need to collaborate on, and that's evaluation criteria. Why we need to be able to talk about with our customer what is your priority? Like, what are you looking for in someone to offer you these goods and services? And where does this fall in the level of priority? Are you more concerned about experience than you are with cost? Are you more concerned about functionality than you are with references? And so that is absolutely something that we want to have a conversation with them about. And so again, this is just like setting expectations that not only we're going to be working on the requirements, but also like we're going to be working on like what you value the most, the customer, in a successful bidder. And then the last part of it is going to be like, what do you want to see from them? The vendor questions, their references, their experience, their project approach, their certifications, their qualifications, et cetera. And so these are sections that need collaboration and consensus versus these sections, and I say, I don't need any help, thank you. You really don't. When you dissect your elements of your RFP, your RFQ, your RFI, your informal bids, your RFPs, whatever it is, you boil it down to these common sections that everyone has. Some of which need a boilerplate to start, and then some training and guidance that you can give them, and then you can turn it over to a department and start adding their expertise to it, like the stuff that we just talked about. Others, like these sections, you want them locked down. You want them always there. You may have a couple of options that you switch on and off of whether certain things are going to be included or not. But other than that, they're like never modified. Don't touch it. And so like those folks really don't even ever need to see that stuff or ever need to be confused by it. And so, and our tool actually does, and so what it does is actually separates those out. And they're like, okay, these are the sections that actually need some collaboration on. These are the sections that don't. And we do it in a way so that it doesn't, the things that need our collaboration versus things that don't aren't necessarily happen in the same order as like how a vendor needs to read a solicitation, if that makes sense. And so it's important that you not like put those two together. I have certainly seen solicitations where it was like two separate documents, and like one document was like, here's the boilerplate stuff. And then the other document was like, here's the sort of things that are sort of custom to this project stuff. And I know why they did that. They did that because it made their lives easier. But if I have like a section over here that's scope of work, that's like scope of work of things that we always do, and then like scope of work of things that are custom to this project, then you're asking the vendor essentially to like try to put, two and two together, inside of separate documents, and it's just not intuitive, right? And so I bring this up because there are ways that you can actually accomplish both. But the first thing we wanted to talk about is like the things that need collaboration, things that don't. And also that like if you go from agency to agency, your language may change, your terms may change, but these sections we see over and over and over again. So there is definitely some method to the madness, so to speak. And so the last part of this is who is doing the work now, and so when it comes to the scope of work, the project requirements, the vendor proposal format, the questionnaire, the evaluation criteria, the pricing table and format, who's going to be responsible for doing that stuff? And so can you assign someone, hey, you're the one responsible for this. This is your primary responsibility to work on the requirements. Hey, you're the one, project manager is the one who's, who makes the decisions about, time frames, and, when you want to start the project, and what's the priority of the things that you value the most from your partners. So, needing to have that ability to be able to make those assignments, to map out who's going to be responsible for what. And again, in ProcureNow, our software actually will break that up and assign stuff to different people based off of how who's got the expertise in which area. But again, like I'll repeat this, that just because we have all these tools kind of built into ProcureNow, but that certainly doesn't mean that you can't do that today. When you are working on your projects. And ultimately what this is boiling down to is just like proper expectations up front can lead to better collaboration and better consensus when the time comes for that to happen. All right, so I mentioned before that it's important to sort of separate out things that need collaboration and things that don't. But then and have that be a different set of what you review to now, which is how do you want to organize your solicitations? How do you want to organize your templates going forward? And so I really love this. I'll tell you where it came from. It came from sales experience, actually. And I intentionally say this, like the purpose of this document is to sell them on the solicitation, right? Like you also want them to understand it properly. You also want to set good expectations, but ultimately we're trying to sell them. And so, I like to, so whether it's you start from the cover page and you work your way to exhibits, we want the solicitation to tell a story, to tell the right story, and a story that like intrigues them. And I like it called like my 6-episode miniseries of developing a solicitation, what that looks like. So number one, from the vendor's eyes, what's in it for me? And so you just stop and think about that when you look at your solicitation template. You have to think from the eyes of the vendor. What do they want to see in like the first 2 or 3 pages that gets them interested? What's in it for me? What's the commitment? What's the risk reward for submitting a response, right? So I need to understand, like, if my first experience with this solicitation is you handed me a 200-page PDF and said, we would love for you to participate in this. That's the first impression. The first impression wasn't the cover sheet. It wasn't the language that's on the first couple of pages. It was the fact that you handed them a 200-page PDF. And they're like, we want you to respond to this. Okay. I've certainly heard folks respond back to some of our customers and say, we're not interested. This is this document, it's too much. And so, when we see that happen, we would sit down with them. We're like, okay, like, how do we break this up? How do we change the experience for them so that the experience is more guided, interactive, and it sort of funnels them into being interested. And so we just want to make sure that the first bit of information they see isn't, please download a 200-page document. We want to give them a better experience than that, because we want the right people to be interested in our projects, right? So what's in it? So think about the first experience. What's in it for me? What's the commitment? What's the risk reward? And then number 2, I say, give me the goods. Make the project scope easy to get to. Make it obvious. Call it, I don't know, like you call it whatever you want, but make that part obvious. Draw it out. Like, it should look different than the terms and conditions, or the awards process, or the clause about bid protests. It should look visually different. It should be in a different place. It should stand out. Because folks need to go there next, because that's the information that's going to, if you get them excited about the scope and the requirements, and you want to do that before you hit them with the rules and with all of the other stuff, then now, like, the barrier of entry just keeps raising and raising, right? And so now I'm at the point where I've read the introduction, I've read the scope of work, I'm interested, I am invested as a vendor or as a bidder that's reading through this. And so that, now I can start reading the next part, laying out the rules of the bidding process, laying out the format of the response, making sure that everything that they need to respond to is all in one place. And then after that, what if I win, then what? And then the final, I put down at the very last, is CYA. And for those of you who don't know what that means, it's, cover your whatever. So that's all of that other language that you need to put in there that, is, contractual legal language that you need to sort of cover your agency, so that, no one's liable, that you're compliant, that, this will look good in an audit, etc. Put that in the back. So I would, again, the more that I respond and see these types of solicitations, the more that I really like to stress this, because it makes a difference. It will make a difference in how this layout, this format actually makes a difference in how internally, we go about like formulating the solicitation from beginning to end, but also really change how vendors look at this when they're responding. All right. So at this point, I'll jump off my soapbox and just have a couple other things, and then we have a couple stories to tell, and I'm going to actually show the product and get our friend Geri here involved. So a couple of just key points before we go into this. Have you ever found yourself spinning your wheels on section numbering, table formats, trying to remember all the different places where SWMBE is referenced? Do I have it? If I have not, like, is there a form that needs to be included? Is there not? Is there a clause that needs to be included or not? Where have I referenced the deadline dates in the 5 different places? And if I changed it from March 3rd to March 10th, how many, did I make all did I do it all in the right place? So this is what we talk about when we talk about spending less time on doing mundane tasks that have low personal value, and more time engaging customers, more time engaging your local vendors, less time staring at a word processor trying to figure out like why my format's messed up. And so, that's another key piece of this is like when you have systems like ProcureNow and other cloud-based systems, this stuff it's just not an issue anymore. And that frees you to focus on better logic flow, including only those forms that need to be including, making sure the scope speaks to the prospective bidder. Essentially, you're now free to do your job because we're not asking you to spend 2 hours figuring out like why this says A versus 1 versus I versus 2, and how do I keep my sections together and my length, that kind of stuff. It's okay when I need like a break from like the real world, but it's not something that I really want to like take up as like a major part of my job duty. And so, that's something else to think about, is that you can actually get more done. You can actually have more conversations when you're not focusing on mundane tasks so much. And then the last point here before we go into to our conversations and our demo is when you are collaborating and tasking within the solicitation itself, as opposed to, again, like dropping stuff in an email and sending it around, it makes it really easy to establish rules and collaborate on your task within the document in real time. And so what that allows you, with lack of a better word, is like you can delegate your tasks more easily if you have a tool that lets you delegate those tasks more easily. And so it's actually a really good segue into the next part of our conversation. So with that, all right. So I was using Leon County as an example of like the template that they had before. That was it's kind of difficult to just navigate, just because there's not a lot of visual indicators on like where things are. Like you literally, if you wanted to do it, you'd have to read every single bit of it, and that can be a problem. If I'm trying to market something, I certainly don't want someone to have to read like a 100-page document before they decide that they want to buy it. Or in our case, it's spend the time to respond to it. So with that, I'm going to switch over to out of the presentation here, and switch over to some projects that we're working on in Leon County. Geri, are you there?
I am.
Okay, so before we get too far in, I just want to make sure that the folks on the line can hear you. So did everybody hear Geri just say hello?
I've never had people tell me they couldn't hear me.
Oh yeah, okay, sounds like you're coming across pretty loud and clear. Awesome, amazing, amazing.
Yay!
Unfortunately, we can't see your face, but maybe next time.
Especially because I got ready after I was in my office.
I know. She called me before, and she was like, "Can we? Do I need to take a shower? Like, I'm gonna go out a little bit later to meet up, with my husband or whatever. Like, should I do that now?" And I'm like, yes, you should do that now. Like, we want to see your face. And then we couldn't get it to work. So, so next time. Anyhow, so Geri and I have been working on their ProcureNow implementation for a few weeks. And so one of the things I wanted to start off with was just quickly show you, because I showed you their template before and what we were working with before. I wanted to show you how we transformed that into a template-driven, like an intelligent template-driven workflow solution in ProcureNow. And so while I'm opening this up, Geri, I would love if you could just start off talking a little bit about like what this process was like of taking something that was a Word document template with highlighted text in it and turning that into a RFP, transforming that into an RFP writing tool in ProcureNow. Can you see my screen?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh no.
No, you can't. You can't hear me? Oh no, are we having technical difficulties again?
Okay, there you go. There you go. Sorry. Meanwhile, the whole time you've been perfectly clear on my phone, and then all of a sudden you disappeared.
Oh, okay. Did you hear my question?
To kind of take you through the beginning process.
Yeah, like what was that process like for you to like convert that Word document into kind of a structured template in ProcureNow?
Okay, so I'm going to be clear. I was petrified when we first started and we actually started talking about it because I thought, my God, this is going to be the most overwhelming thing I've ever dealt with in my entire life.
Thanks, Geri.
I'm going to be honest. No, it was a scary first start to even think about doing it. And then we opened up I sent Thao our solicitation template and he said, nope, we can totally work with this. And I thought, we can't work with it. It hasn't been updated in years. It's a hot mess. There's no way. And it did not take us very long to get started. And when I say it probably was the easiest process out of any software we've ever used, I truly mean that from the bottom of my heart. We were able to look at the different sections and kind of figure out what was it that we needed to do and how are we going to break this apart so our vendors would be able to see exactly what it was that they needed, and make sure, because, and Thao and I talked about this earlier, it's not always the vendor's fault if they forget to submit things. And what we wanted to do was make sure that our solicitation was going to be easy to follow, that they would be able to submit everything that they needed, because coming from the state of Florida, which is where we're located, we have very, very strict public record laws, and we have to follow Florida statute. And because of all of those requirements, there are things that if somebody doesn't submit, we would consider them non-responsive unless, of course, it was considered a minor irregularity, which then they'd still need to submit it. But we seem to, a lot of times, have a vendor that forgets to submit something. And I think part of that is because what we were using prior to ProcureNow had limitations on size of documents. And so we had documents in lots of different locations and we put it in the solicitation. But like he showed you, our solicitation wasn't the easiest to follow. So when we started this process, we sat and we collaborated and we talked about, there was a lot of question answers and there was a lot of thinking out loud. And he laughed when I said that before, but that's what we did. But what I love most about the system is when you're doing something and you're designing the program and you're putting different categories in for the solicitation, everything's instantaneous. So if I have a question, I can put it right into ProcureNow and he immediately gets it and he's able to answer those questions. So it was a super easy process, and I think you're all gonna have to fan yourselves when you see how fabulous our new template is. But it was a perfect time to fix our old template. Not only did we have it so it's easier for vendors to view and manipulate and move around in it, but we were able to update everything, which took seconds, where if I would have done it on paper, I can't even tell you how many days, months, weeks, years that might potentially take us.
Yeah, and Geri, that's a really, really important topic, and it's kind of what I was talking about before in the webinar. Is like, you can use ProcureNow as an excuse to accomplish a lot of things, right? Like, so what have we accomplished just in taking your Word document template and transforming it into our system? There's a ton of things that we've actually accomplished with that. Number one, now every IFB is going to be consistent every single time. It's going to have the right language in it every single time. Folks are going to not be confused by it internally each and every time. When a change needs to be made to your template, it can be made in one place, and you don't have to worry about if someone has like the wrong copy of it or something like that. And then of course there's just like the vendor experience improving. There is the review process improving, and we haven't even talked about just like the amount of time that it takes. And so so one of the things that I was going to ask you.
Because that is probably the thing that makes me the happiest. So I am pretty good at doing solicitations. I mean, with all of the things I run, I'm the contract procurement administrator for Leon County, and I take on special projects on top of that. And so I have staff that reports into me. But when it comes to doing a solicitation, I'm pretty quick at doing them. I know exactly what needs to be in there. If something changes, I know that it's in there 4 times, and I'll go in and change it. I'm really quick at it. And I'm still going to say, even if it takes me an hour to do I'm going to say a medium-sized solicitation, because usually our forms, I have everything in file, so it's easy for me to pull. When we went to this system and I put my very first solicitation in as a draft to kind of just see how the system really worked and really see one of my solicitations in, I want to say that it took me 7 minutes from the time I opened it till the time it was. And I said, well, what do we do next? And Thao said, we're done. I called him a liar, because 7 minutes is not real. It's not realistic. 7 minutes. And so I have some staff who, a few do not feel super comfortable doing solicitations yet, and one who definitely feels comfortable doing them, although she's still a little iffy on our process because she's only been with us for a year. And it took me, 45 minutes, and that included all of the training and her typing in her own, because she wasn't really sure how to do the unit pricing sheet, but physically typing in, it took 45 minutes from start to finish on her solicitation. And if she didn't have to type that and learn how to do that piece of it, it probably would have taken her no more than 15 minutes.
Yeah, for sure.
I have people that are super excited, and they said, every time you ask me to do a solicitation, because it's not their normal responsibilities or something that they only do sometimes, they argue, they fight. We all have those employees that are not gung-ho. And I actually had one of that employee call me and say, my God, I'm so excited. When can we get started on my new one? So This system makes things a whole lot more simple and much, much easier for all parties.
So thank you so much, Geri, for that. We're so excited that this is working out well for Leon County. One of the things that Geri was talking about, I have a little test project that I'm going to open up here, and I'll show you what the experience is like for someone who's building the solicitation. So I'm going to come in here and build out this IFB, and it has a series of questions that you ask up front. And so I'm just going to go through these questions real quick so everyone can see. And I'm also going to show you how Geri's actually, I'm going to have Geri kind of be online on the other end over, I'm in Sacramento, she's down in Tallahassee. And she and I are going to collaborate a little bit on this test project that we have going on. So I'm going to scroll on here, and I'm going to say for this project, I don't need MWSB at all. I'm just going to start off and just say we don't need MWSB. Do I need a contractor license? No, I'll say no on that. Do I need a big guarantee? I'm just going to say no on a bunch of the stuff. Local vendor, no. Trench Safety Act, no. Let's choose standard insurance. am I going to be using ProcureNow to do my bid specification, or am I just going to attach it? If I'm attaching it, just say no. So I'll just say no there. And then am I going to be using the ProcureNow built-in pricing sheet versus attaching like a more complex pricing sheet? And so 11 questions I get asked at the front of developing the solicitation, right? And so now I'll say next. And so I'm just going to stop right there and move from drafting mode to review mode. And when I do that, so if you recall what I was talking about earlier about how ProcureNow can separate out those things that you need to collaborate on and the things that you don't. When we're in the draft mode, it's just the stuff that you need to collaborate on. And when you're in the review mode, it's the other stuff. So I'm just going to click over from draft to review mode and kind of show you what we've built so far. So I'm just going to come down here to MWSBE, and I'm going to click on this. I'm going to say that the language here just says this solicitation does not have a project-specific goal. Here's some information. Although each respondent is strongly encouraged to secure this participation, and that we want you to fill out a survey. And so this is, remember this NWSB and the language, this one section that I have here. And then I'll click over to my attachments and I see I've got my bid response cover sheet and I've got my forms for solicitations. Now, what if someone were to come up to me and say, well, let's do this. I am going to click here and I'm just going to provide a little comment here, and I'm just going to reach out to Geri and say, Geri, do we need, or does this project have a goal for WSB? And I'm just going to go in here and I'm just going to add Geri here, and I'm just going to comment that and then close that out. Now, I see here that I have a comment here, and what I'm going to ask Geri is to come in and I'm going to look over my comments, and I'm going to ask her to read the email that she just got that says that someone has asked you to collaborate on this project. And then she's going to hopefully respond to me and let me know that that I do need an MWSBE, not to give you a cue, Geri, but so she's actually just logging into ProcureNow, and tell us what you see, Geri.
So I have a comment. Give me 1 second.
No problem.
Because it's showing up in my one. Oh, here it is. And I am going to respond to you.
Okay, I got a new comment received down in the lower hand side of the screen. I scroll down, and it looks like maybe she did. Oh, Geri, does this project have a goal for MWSBE? We do not have this requirement. There she is, right there at the top. And so I will maybe respond back to her, and I'll just say like, thanks. I'm going to pretend like she said we do have a requirement, and so I'm just going to say reply, and then I'm going to resolve that, and now that goes away. And so, and I can resolve this now too, and that goes away. So, and I can go back here and I can look at the comments that I have here, and we're good here. So let me go back here. So let's pretend that Geri said that there is a requirement. And so I'm going to go back and look at this and I'm saying, okay, you know what? I need to change this. Well, what would I normally do? I'd have to try to go out and find what clause there is or whatever, like what attachments go along with it, whatever. So what I am going to do is I'm going to go back here to the document setup. I'm just going to say edit this, and I'm going to change this from none to construction subcontractor. And I'll just say save. So now I know that I have an MWSB aspirational goal. So let's take a look at what that did. And so if I come back over here, you'll notice that the language is completely different. There's 3 different sections. One that talks about the policy itself and what the percentages are for that particular kind of project. And then 2, we've got the forms that they need to fill out and what the contact information is. And so That's the clauses. I'll come now over to attachments, and I'll notice that in addition to the bid response cover sheet and the forms, I now have 3 additional attachments that were attached to the project that the vendor would need to fill out as a part of this as well. And so let me come over here to the vendor questionnaire. And you'll notice that it says here all respondents, including minority MBE, WMB, must complete the participation plan form. And you'll also see that there is a respondent and team survey form that gets included here. So again, if I just to kind of toggle this back and forth so I can show you what that difference is, if I go back to there being none, then and I look at even the vendor format of the questionnaire, it's going to look a lot different. There's no response area for the vendor to fill out. The actual forms that are available are different. And all we had to do is all we were doing is we were toggling that decision on and off here in our interview questions. And so the same thing applies to everything else. So, okay, I do need a contractor license. And the contractor license is going to be a general contractor. It's if I'm familiar with George, why did I just say George? Geri, probably because his name is Geri. With Florida statute, then I would come in here and I would put in what the statute is that applies and what the contractor license that applies. In California, there's a code that goes along with these different contractor licenses, et cetera. And so what Geri and I did together was we dissected that template and we came up with all of those options that we would want to just draw out and turn that into intelligence that was built into the template. And that was it. So of course, it took us a little bit of time to get that set up. I like to say it slows down before it speeds up. That's exactly what happens. We spend a little bit of time, we get it right. We also take this moment so that when we look at this solicitation now, you see kind of what we were talking about, where it's here's your important instructions. Here's a little bit of an introduction. If I want to know specific information, I don't have to necessarily search through a 200-page PDF in order for me to understand if it had a pricing proposal, what that pricing proposal would say, the price sheet would say, for instance, if I want to know what I need to respond, I know that if I'm looking at this form, that it's including exactly what I need in order to be able to respond to this project. So I'm going to come back in here one last time, and I'm just going to add, we need a bid guarantee, we need a payment performance bond, it's going to be local work, Trench Safety Act. So I'm going to add all this other stuff in that makes this a little bit more complex of a solicitation. And just click save here, and then come back over here, and you'll see that now I have insurance requirements, and now I have required certifications, let's see here. There's my local preference language that wasn't in there before. This is that's the stuff that we were talking about that just automatically just shows up. You don't have to remember where that was. It just automatically puts it in there. So now that we're free from having to do all that, we can do the things that Geri and I are doing here. Where Geri, I don't know if you want to do this, but maybe go through and just make a couple of comments on a couple of other sections of things that might need to be worked on. But this is what I was talking about before, where if you offer real-time collaboration, and again, this is something that we offer in ProcureNow, but if you have Office 365 and you have Google Docs, there is some good real-time collaboration that you can automatically turn on and start taking advantage of. So that's just one of the things that we offer, is the ability to do this real-time collaboration. But I'll come back here to my vendor questions, and all of a sudden things got a little bit more complex. Right now I've got a bid guarantee, and the language that goes with it. My payment performance bond, the language that goes with it. Oh, I see I got like a new comment here. So I'll come over here, I'll scroll down, I'll see that she said local trade work needs to be reviewed or removed. And so, okay, you know, that's, I certainly can understand that. And so let me just close that out here. Actually, if I do this and let's just, okay, now that I need to remove that, I can just come back over here to my setup and here we go. No local, I'll keep it local vendor, but with no local trades contractor work like she had suggested. And I'll just go ahead and do that. And that will automatically just replace the sections out for you. I also notice here, if I click here, that I see that she's in it too, which is actually really important. So that if I go into the project I'm working on it and I see that she's also working on it, that tells me something important. You know, I can maybe reach out to her over the phone and be like, hey, like I see that you're in it too. Like, do you want to work together on it? I've actually seen that happen with Geri a couple of times, and you know, kind of reached out to her, you know, while we're working on a project together. And so, you know, that's another thing that we can do here. Let me just go back over here and show you that. Excuse me. So there's, you know, so now I don't have the language in there around like local trade, but still have local vendor preference. And, you know, she's going to town here and telling me some that they need we need standard language, you know, et cetera, you know, so, you know, I can come in here and I can say that, oh, okay, but I chose broad here, so let me just go in and let's make a change to that to use the standard language instead and just save that. So you see what's happening is that you know, we're accomplishing just a ton of things in a very short amount of time with the combination of intelligent templates and live real-time collaboration. And so now when you hear, you know, folks talking about how we can cut the amount of time, because a lot of people look at us, they're like, can you really do that? Can you cut the amount of time and the time that it takes you to build a solicitation? We can look at them straight in the eye and say, absolutely, we can absolutely do that. And this is why. I can, you know, say thanks and resolve that, reply and resolve that, and then go over to look at my items and see that you know, that the language is changing. Change it. So there's that. So and then you know, Geri, if you would kind of as we're wrapping up with this, I want to leave a few moments open in case folks have a question and answer or questions that we can help them out with, and you know, maybe they want to ask you a question about your experience. And you know, I would just want to ask, you know, that when you went through the process of your first posting your first solicitation, which is this volunteer to fire department building that you have out, you know, I seriously am curious to know, you know, how was the experience has been different for you so far? Can you maybe point out some key differences?
So I think building the solicitation was so much easier. I think that I have not received as many questions. Usually by now I will receive a ridiculous amount of questions that, you know, where do I find this? And then I have to tell them, well, you need to go to the supplemental site. It says it in the purpose, and you need to go to a different location. So now that we don't have a restriction on size of our documents, because some of our plans are big, really big. And so everything's together. So that has been really nice. I think that the system has been super intuitive for our vendors. We have had a ton of people. I remember we released it, and when we released it, I went on to look and see how many people have, you know, looked at it, because that's something that we keep track of. And when I opened it up and saw all the vendors, I almost fainted. I thought, my God, I can't believe how many of them were able to figure out how to get in. And it's just such an intuitive, easy system to use. We have not, as of yesterday, we didn't have any questions, and today I haven't had time to look to see if we had questions because I worked in the warehouse this morning for a little while with both of my staff. But it works really, really well. We've had no issues, but it has absolutely been a time saver with things.
Right.
We're going to be putting up an addendum. That will be our next step. It will be our first addendum that we put up. But I think that is going to be just as easy as the rest of the stuff that we've been working on. I did want to address one really quick thing. Another thing I love about the system, and I love the system. I can't tell you how happy I am with it.
Awesome.
You can watch and see who has it in their inbox. So when we were getting it reviewed, because we have to go through a certain chain of commands, I knew who was holding us up. And so I called the person, and the person didn't call me back. So I went to their director and I said, "You are holding me up. We need to release this. I need to know what's happening." And so the director said, "Remove them and put me on." And that was about a 30-second change. And I had it approved within 15 minutes. So you know where things are, because a lot of times, and I know that Thao talked about this during the webinar portion, you hear people say, "You've been holding it." And I'm like, "I haven't been holding it. It's been in your inbox since this date." But you'd have to look through, I don't know, if you're anything like me, 5,000 emails to try to find when did I send it to them, and did they open it, and did they read it? And now I have everything at my fingertips.
Thank you so much for pointing that out, Geri. And yeah, like what she's talking about is there's a part that we won't get into much today just because of lack of time, but there's a part where you can like route things around for a review by typing in the folks' names who you want to review. And it actually tells you whether they've logged in and when they logged in and the last time they logged in and what they looked at and what they changed and what they commented on and responded to. Like everything is completely auditable. Audited in our solution as well. And then you see the status changes that happen and when they happen, and who did it. So yeah, for sure. There's this, and it kind of goes back to, I think I may not have included that quote in this one, but there is a quote that one of our customers talk about that just says like, oh, here it is, that the procurements are just more collaborative and more transparent. And that makes it easier for you to build higher quality, easier to read RFPs and bids. And that's really was the goal of this conversation today, was to just, well, number one, give you some tips so that you could, so that you can organize your process a little bit better, organize your format of your solicitation a little bit better, but also integrate real-time collaboration into this process. Because if we're all going to be, if I'm going to be sitting here at my desk, like I have been for the last month, or gosh, more now, and and working from home and not traveling, et cetera, not commuting, then this is an opportunity for us to use the best technology that's out there so that we can make these innovations that are clearly available to us. The CEO of Microsoft, I saw an article yesterday where they said that 2 years worth of innovation has occurred in the last 2 months. And so that's not a bad thing if what we're doing is we're helping make our lives better and helping advance our careers and helping us focus on the things that are most important to us. So I just wanted to kind of leave it with that before we go into to see if anyone had any question or answers for myself or for Geri.